roll. Hi, everyone. Gosh, it's been a month since our last talk. I'm so excited to be back. It was elections, life, traveling, all that other stuff. I was gone for a while because I was speaking in Boston and then Los Angeles, but I'm back now. Today's microlearning is on the power of generosity with Alejo Porras. I'm so excited for today's talk. For those who are in the live Zoom audience, or if you're watching this via live stream on Meta, YouTube, YouTube, Facebook, wait, Meta. Yeah, I think we let go of Twitter just because you know how much I don't like Elon Musk. So we're no longer on X, but we want you engaging in the comments in the chat. So introduce yourselves. Let us know what your name is, what city you're coming from. This is not some boring presentation. We want you in the conversation because your voice matters. So if you have a book recommendation, if you like, something that Alejo says, or if you have a quote to share or advice to share, let us know in the comment or chat, whether you're watching this via live stream or in the live Zoom audience. For those who are new to this community of 7 microlearning, the purpose is to help our listeners elevate their mindset and their skill set by bringing in leading authors, subject matter experts, coaches, etc. Our goal is to democratize leadership development for all. Not many of us can afford, executive training for $400 an hour. So these classes are completely free. That's why we have a global audience of people from, Kingston, Jamaica to Vietnam to Manila to the USA. We want to democratize knowledge and uplift our global community. Once again, our goal of Community 7 is to train over 1 million people in the next decade. So thank you for making this microlearning and for joining this global movement. Once again, this is not a webinar, a boring webinar where you passively listen. We want you sharing your ideas, commenting in the comments or the chat. Because remember, you are a part of this conversation as well. Lastly, we want you to actually take 1, 2, 3 actions after hanging up. We want you to implement at least one idea that you take from this call within the next 24 hours. That's my challenge to you. And for those who are in the live Zoom audience, if you can, please turn on your videos because we want you in the conversation. For those watching on live stream or for those watching on the Zoom, please interact in the comment section. Before we start, a few questions to ask. And I'm going to just put this, let me see. We will just do it just with me. But if you're in the live Zoom audience or if you're watching this via live stream, if I asked you a question and the answer is yes, just put both hands like this. If the answer is no, then you could just leave your hands down, okay? So actually, let me put this into gallery mode. And if you're watching this, you can put this in gallery mode as well. First question, have you ever experienced a life-changing act of generosity from someone? If the answer is yes, both hands down. And if you're watching this via live stream or Zoom, you could also type, or maybe not on Zoom, but if you're watching this via live stream, you could just type in yes or no. Do you believe that generosity can create unexpected opportunities in life? Do you find it challenging to be generous when you feel short on time and resources? Yes to this one. Have you ever felt more fulfilled after helping someone without expecting anything in return? Do you think generosity can improve relationships in the workplace? Do you believe generosity is something that can be practiced and strengthened over time? Awesome. Thank you so much. A lot of yeses there. I love that. That question in terms of, do you find it hard to be generous when you're short of time or resource was, for me, probably the big one. I think it's that struggle. And I think the community of 7 followers, people who watch this, tend to be givers, because I think that's kind of my audience. And I think there's like this thin line of being a giver and wanting to give, but at the same time, being creating boundaries, right? And being able to really um, identify the takers in the world, because I think you can't give to everyone all the time, right? Because there's only a limited amount of time and resources in your life, right? I think this is why it's so important for us to talk today about the power of generosity, and how it can really help you grow, just both in personal life and career. I think our last two micro learnings from like maybe a month ago, we had Dr. Ivan Meissner come, and he's a CEO of BNA, and he's a founder of BNA, and his organization, I'm sorry, BNI, has generated over $20 billion in revenue off of 14 million referrals. And his organization focuses on the topic that we are talking about today, which is givers gain. So his philosophy is when you give, you gain. I really believe that generosity has a power of changing lives. When we give, whether it's our time, our knowledge, or resources, we start to feel more connected and positive. And on a personal note, I can actually give an example of how it's changed my life. And many of you guys know my story. During the pandemic, when I got laid off from Fortune, I fell into this depression. And the one thing besides my daughter that got me out of the deep depression and hole that I was digging for myself was focusing on other people. And it seems counterintuitive, because when you are feeling like the world is crumbling around you, the automatic reaction is to kind of get into a hole. And I think that was my first reaction, was to just, focus on myself and my lack and what I was, losing. And when I started kind of just focusing on how can I help other people? How can I help other people? It started opening things, right? Like I stopped focusing on the lack and what I didn't have, the fact that I got laid off. I stopped focusing on fear, and I just started focusing on how can I be of service? And that's when I started to actually post daily, first as Community of Seven and then as myself on LinkedIn. And as you know, that's changed my life, because me posting every day on LinkedIn turned into a book. Me releasing a book turned into me speaking on stages globally, right? And it wasn't like I had that end in mind of there's going to be a return at the end. I just focused on how can I give. And through that act of giving, it opened these doors that I wouldn't have seen for myself, if that makes sense. And I really believe that the reason why is that generosity creates a mindset of abundance. It helps us focus on what we have rather than what we lack. And it changes your perspective. And I really believe that it also can improve relationships, and it can bring people closer together. Because I know the most fulfilling relationships and friendships I have, it's one of giving. Well, we're not worried about did they give, did they take? It's just about really wanting that other person to succeed. And there's that safety kind of in that. And I think if we can replicate that in the workforce, then we can kind of create this community of generosity and giving within our companies, right? And studies have actually shown that giving actually makes us feel happier and healthier by activating the parts in our brain tied to pleasure and connection. And by making generosity a regular part of your day-to-day life, you're going to find more joy, meaning, and fulfillment. Okay. So before I introduce our guests, I want you to quickly answer this, whether you're watching this via live stream or if you're in the live Zoom audience. And I'm going to ask you this question, right? And then answer it. Don't press send until I tell you. Same thing if you're watching this via live stream. What's the one main thing that prevents people from giving? What's the one main thing that prevents people from giving? And I'm going to count down, and then you're going to press send at the same time. 3, 2, 1, press send. So fear, not sure what others need, a scarcity mentality, expectations, right? Fear of being received. Oh, that's an interesting. I like that one, Louise. I have a funny story about that, but I'll bring it later. So it's funny because sometimes people have this fear of actually taking, right? And I see that a lot with givers. Rejection. Okay, I love that. And one of the comments that we had earlier was this whole notion of when we're feeling lack, it's hard to give, right? When you have monetary constraints or time constraints, right? So in the chat, whether you're in the live stream or in the Zoom audience, I want you to kind of put, what can you give if you don't have time or or if you don't have money, right? Put it in the chat. 3, 2, 1, press send. Prayers. Yes, amen. I love that. You have the time if you make the time. Love that. Advice, praise, support, prayers, appreciation. And I want you guys to do this because I know you guys are all on a mute. You can also mouth it if you want. Say all those words. Love, attention, support, advice, praise, prayers, appreciation. Feel how it feels inside. It feels good, right? And I think part of it is that when you give, whatever you can give, because sometimes we are financially constrained, sometimes we don't have time, but a simple prayer, right? Advice, sending people a quick text message. Hey, how are you doing? And one of the homeworks I'm going to have for you guys to do is sometimes today, I want you to just text someone and just tell them something kind. Tell them that you're praying for them. Tell them that you're thinking about that. And ask yourself, how does that make me feel? Right? Okay, so I am so excited to introduce our guest right now. Alejo Porras is an illustrator and a storyteller. Funny story. The way I actually met Alejo is I did one of my talks like this, and right, like not 10, 15 minutes afterwards, he posted a illustration of the talk. And I was like, mind blown. He basically encapsulated the talk. And I think the talk I had was with Jeff Harry. We were talking about public speaking and how to make a living off of it. But he made this great illustration. And so I ended up getting on a call with him just to learn more about him. And so I'm so excited to introduce him today. Um, Alejo grew up in Costa Rica and he got the chance to meet people from different countries and backgrounds. And though he loved hearing all of their stories and experiences, he realized and was frustrated that he wasn't able to communicate with some of them because of the language barriers. He was a Spanish speaker. And that's when he discovered the power of drawing and became an illustrator and a storyteller. He soon found himself coming to the United States where he knew no one. He left his entire family, had no friends, and he came to Savannah College of Art and Design to earn his MFA. He is now a professional illustrator. He creates conversations, shares stories, and enables individuals, companies, and brands to tell their stories in a compelling and clear way that connects with others no matter what language they speak. So welcome, Alejo. And I know we're going to do a quick Q&A. I'm going to open it to the audience, but I know you have kind of something that you want to share. So I'm going to leave it. I'm going to put the spotlight on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Len. And just real quick, because I'm on LinkedIn and it looks like it's pre-live. I don't know if it needs to do something else or if people on LinkedIn are missing it. I just don't want people who
Okay.
couldn't come to the Zoom meeting to
Oh,
be
yes.
missing that. So while you take a look at that, thank you so much for having me here. And thank you all of you from, I don't know, Chicago, Stanford, Los Angeles, South Africa, all of you guys, and Charles, thank you so much for coming today. I don't know if you have met me already, or if this is the first time, and I hope I don't scare you. I hope that you guys can have a good time today. I have some just like a personal story that I want to share to illustrate my journey through understanding what I call voluntary generosity. And we have made the caveat of like generosity needs to be voluntary, otherwise it's not generosity, is coercion, is somebody trying to push you into doing something you don't want. So generosity needs to come from you. Now, how do you feel free to give? um, well, you need to first figure out that you have something of value. And I wanted to just share one story real quick, well, kind of real quick. And if at any point I'm looking here at the chat too, I'm gonna try to have my eyes in multiple places. But if you have a question, and you can put it in the chat, as I see it, we can address it. But I want to share first my screen here, because I want to talk to you about my background. Lan mentioned very briefly that I'm from Costa Rica, and one thing that I had when I was in Costa Rica is that I had a fundamental problem, and it is that I am a shy extrovert. So I get energy from belonging, from being around people, but I it was hard for me to take the first step. So when I was growing up, I had this thing that I felt like I was invisible. I felt like at the beginning of my life, I felt like I was kind of disposable when I arrived places because I didn't know how to enter the circle. And I realize now that my face is just in covering that part. Okay, there you go. I was not part of that circle, and it was kind of hard for me to get into it. But there was something that happened to me eventually. This was me kind of sad at the beginning, because I felt empty. This was my situation at the beginning, and it was hard for me to address it until one day something interesting happened. My mom kind of convinced me to go to a new church that had opened close to our home, and she has said, well, the place is very cozy, is welcoming, it used to be a farm, it has trees, and it doesn't look like a church at all. Come on and just give it a try. And I went kind of reluctantly, but the place was actually really nice. And the thing about it is that it was so small to begin with that most of the people who were there were grown-ups, and the environment was very diverse. So there were people who were psychologists, people who had blue collar jobs, people who had like PhDs and stuff like that, people who were in real estate. Like I got to know people with very different backgrounds, and we became friends. Now, I was a 16-year-old, but I felt like I belonged because they gave me space for that. So at that point, this became a different me, in which I was okay. I was happy. I felt like I was in a place of receiving. So, oops, I ran out of space there, but there's receiving there. So these people gave me a place, gave me their lives. They, in the sense that they share with me advice, and they didn't make me feel awkward because I was 16-year-old. They made me feel part of that. I felt like I had something in me. I had value in me now. Before I was empty, and now I felt like I had value just because I felt like I belong. I want to pause that there and just to ask you the question, could it be that sometimes in those moments that you feel like you have no value and nothing to give, it is not because you have no value or nothing to give, it's because you haven't found a place in which you feel like you belong first. Because the reality of it is that first we need to feel like we have something of value before we can give it. You cannot get to a place of giving before feeling that. You can try to give, but it would be very hard for you to give it first. You feel like you have nothing of value. If I have with me something that, like a rock, and I just have a rock, like why would I give somebody a rock? Now, if I know that that rock happens to be gold or, a gem, it's like if I give it, like it just changes so much the perspective. Now, this here is what I call passive a passive approach um, to life. At the beginning, you're just trying to see if you have something, right? Now, after that, something interesting happened to me too, is that, well, I got involved in that church. And because I was the only 16-year-old around, when a new kid came by. um I must have shared something like before before I went to this church, I went to another church, and I had trouble, you know, fitting in because I went to the youth group and nobody would talk to me. And, you know, I was okay with being around, but I just felt like I was not part of it. So now in this new church where I was the only kid, when I saw other kids coming, my thing was I want to become the person that I needed when I went to other churches. I didn't think that I had much to give, to be honest, but I had empathy, and that was something. I knew how it felt to arrive to a new place and feel like I didn't belong. So I tried to be for others what I wish somebody had been to me. And now this place, there's like a threshold here. And this is a place of reacting. And I know it kind of sounds weird, but it's essentially when you have figured out that you belong and then you have figured out a need, then there comes this momentum, or this moment in which you see something and you react to it because you see that there's a need. So you're not necessarily being super generous, you're just kind of trying to address things immediately because you notice them. And after that, what happens is that you start to realize that, hey, you actually have something to give. This reaction moment for me turned into 10 years of leading teenagers, and I was zero prepared. Somebody asked me if I could get joined into the leadership, team, because they created a youth group, and then it was like, hey, come and join us and do this thing. I was like, okay. And I was zero prepared. I knew nothing. I had like 17 years old, 16 years old at that point. 17 years old. And then, so what I did is I went all in and I studied and I read and I seeked advice and I wrote ideas and I thought day and night, how can I help these other kids? My obsession became helping the people that I knew. And that led to a surprising event when I was 26 years old, like 10 years after that. But before that, I want to kind of explain, go through these stages. So most people in the world are here. And that's a very sad realization, but it's true. Most people feel empty. Most people experience this and they feel like they have no value. Some people are able to go here into the receiving because they found a group of friends, they found a job, they found a church, they found a sports team, or a fan group of a celebrity or something like that, that they feel like they belong, they're part of this tribe. Maybe for land here, like all these people, all of you who have joined, feel part of this group, feel part of something that is bigger than yourself, this mission of like helping so many people to grow. It's something that sustains you and you feel like you have value, but you're in the receiving stage there. you know and when we're in the receiving stage, we're kind of passive towards life. We're making money, we're being comfortable, we're receiving, and you feel that the value is just being part of something. It's like the classic thing of people who go to church and they feel like the value is going to church, not actually living the life of the principles that are being taught. um, and many people stay here because, again, it's passive, it's chill, like it's the status quo. It's fine, it's not a bad place, it's just chill. Now, the place where I have found the most fulfillment are these two, and these are active. Like, you cannot just be in this part without doing something. In the reaction part, you see a need and you go solve it. In my case, I saw there were kids who were feeling alone, and I went for it and I went to help them. But this could mean something different for you depending on how you work and what the work that you do. Like, if you're in a job and you lead a team, like, to interact, to bring these people in, to help them grow, maybe with your clients, to see the problems that they have and then just go proactively try to help them. But the thing is, like, most people don't jump from here, from receiving to reacting, because there's like this hedge, like a wall in there, that is the comfort zone. Like, they're either too lazy because it's too comfortable, or they're insecure because they're still not sure that they have value, because they've believed that their value is in belonging, not on who they are or what they know. And this was a thing that kind of changed. Of course, now when I see it back, it makes so much sense to me. At the time, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of doing and going through the things. And I'm so grateful that I was able to have the guidance in my life to show me these things, so that I could eventually like live them. And the thing that led me to jump here from the receiving to the reaction part was giving value. Now, what is that? People talk about giving value a lot. And what I believe giving value is, my definition of true value is just essentially having a genuine disposition to help. It doesn't have, and hear me out, this, it doesn't have to actually work, which is the weird thing. It doesn't have to work. It doesn't have to be something necessarily useful. I think just having the disposition to try to do the best you can do to help somebody is enough to bring value to the table. You don't have to wait until you have the solution to people's problems to try to help them. Okay. Now, is the thing, like, I don't know anything, but I'll do anything in my power to help. And I think this translates when you're speaking with clients or communicating with your team, like all of these situations that you encounter with. Imagine a sales call, right? I just had a sales call like a few hours ago. And the whole point of a sales call is not to pitch something to somebody, it's just to ask questions to see where you can help. My disposition is, how can I help you? And if I can help you, I'll tell you about my services. If I cannot help you, I'll tell you about somebody else who can, right? But all of that comes to like this crazy stage, because here you start to feel some value. Here you start to feel like you have more value. And this was like a supernova. It's like a small thing, like supercharge of value. You feel like you have so much to give, so much to give. This is where voluntary generosity, and I'm sorry I'm making a lot of scribbles here. This is where voluntary generosity flows from.
Yeah,
And this
Alejo, and
is,
I just want to pause for
yeah,
a second because Dina Shapiro has a great comment. She said, I think the last point is brilliant. Sometimes we don't offer help because we are not confident that we can solve their problems, but really, if we just genuinely offer to help, that goes a long way. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. You see how all of these things kind of build on each other. Like if you feel empty, it's very hard to be generous. If you feel like you're in the receiving stage and you just need to get things from yourself because you're in a survival mode or you are in a very big need, then it's very hard to kind of give to each other because you need to feed yourselves first. But then when you feed yourself, you see that there's something that you could do, even if you don't have all the answers. You can
So
approach this
is that
position.
feeding self-care? Is it taking care of ourselves? What do you mean by feeding?
This receiving one,
Yes. Is
yes,
that receiving kind of like filling your bucket?
yes, familiar bucket. And the way that I experienced it with this church experience was belonging to a group. Somebody opens the door to you and you go in and they welcome you. And this is hard because you can look for these spaces, but it also depends on how receptive these other spaces are of you. And if you don't
Yeah.
find these spaces somewhere else, then what ends up happening is that if we don't receive this from others, we try to give this to ourselves in ways that are not necessarily the best, which is like binge watching or like doom scrolling and stuff like that. We just try to feed our internal void with all those
Mhm.
things because we cannot find a belonging somewhere else. It takes a lot of self-awareness to be able to say, hey, actually what I need here is to give something of value to other people in order to feel fulfillment of life. It takes a lot of
Yeah.
self-awareness, and in the first stages of our lives or of our journeys, it's very hard to see. So that's why belonging usually comes first, from my perspective and the things that I've seen, and then serving comes after that. Serving and giving comes after that. So
Mhm.
um so yeah, the point here of the voluntary generosity is that you're not giving out of fear and you're not giving out of obligation. You're giving because at this point, at this final point, you can help others. And this value that you feel, you can give it away for free because you know and you're confident that it will help others, and it just feels so good. Somebody put it in the chats. Just feels so good to actually help others, because there's a lot in the reaction part. There's a lot of kind of indecision of like, I don't know if I can help, but I'm gonna try. And there's this sort of kind of, but when you kind of have it figured out, especially, if you're a business owner and you have a product and it works, it helps people's lives better. Like, well, I'm not saying that you're going to give all your products for free because this is your business, right? But there's some ways in which you can give through your business because it works, and it just comes so much easier. Now, I mentioned that I led this group for 10 years, right? I started when I was 16, and at 2020, when I was 26, I got like a life-changing event. Now, the thing that I didn't mention is that I led this group for 10 years and I wasn't paid a penny for that because I didn't believe in getting paid for doing it. I just did it voluntarily. It felt nice. It made me a better person. It made my friends' lives better too. And after 10 years of leading that, I got accepted to the Savannah College of Art and Design. I applied to do my master's degree out of the country. And I was like, I got the letter, you're accepted, congratulations. Okay, where am I gonna get $40,000 to go to this college? That was the question, because I didn't have the money. So it was pretty stressful knowing that I had been accepted to do something that I was looking forward to, and there was this mountain between us. This mountain that was just money. I have never made that much money in my life. I didn't know how I was gonna do it, and I shared this with all my friends, and they moved contacts. They told people. They told her, "How can I help this guy? How can we help this guy?" Got me in an interview to a TV show. There was a work colleague who saw an old work colleague from a previous work who saw this interview in which I was doing concerts and I was doing stuff to raise funds for this thing. And this old colleague worked for an ad agency that was working on I'm gonna change this. I was working on a on a campaign for a phone brand, and they said, "Hey, this campaign is about helping people achieve their dreams." And you're like trying to achieve a dream, like, we could pay you so you can be the face of this campaign that could help you to, and that could give you exposure, so more people could help you. And I was like, that sounds good, let's try it out. So I essentially shared my dream of going to college, being like, hey, I need the funds for doing this. And in return, what I would do is people will share their dreams with me and I will draw their dreams. So if somebody's like, I've always wanted to go to Paris, I will draw them going to Paris or like eating a baguette, and walking around the Eiffel Tower. And they hopefully will like donate something to help me fulfill my dreams. So it was kind of like mutual thing. It was pretty good, or it sounded pretty good to start it. And the campaign was national. So my face was on billboards and TV spots, like in bus stations, in newspapers, like it was everywhere. It was so surreal, like to see me everywhere. And the thing is, you would think that the whole country seeing this would help me raise the funds that I needed, but that was not the case. And it was a hard pill to swallow, because at some point, what I felt was like, gosh, like nobody cares, you know? But that was a lie, because somebody cared. I had this small community of people that I have been part of for 10 years. And this small community of people, friends, and people that I call now my brothers and sisters, they raised more funds or helped me raise more funds than the entire country. And I wasn't expecting that. I couldn't even think that that could have been possible. And
That
the
is
thing,
such a powerful story.
well, the thing that got me was that they said to me, Alejo, you've been here for us for all these years. How could we not help you?
Yeah. But you know what that why that is so powerful? When you gave 8 years ago, you didn't give with an expectation of having anything in return, but
Yeah.
you kept on giving, you kept on giving. And it wasn't the whole country of Costa Rica that got you to the school. It was those people that you helped years ago, selflessly, without
Mhm.
expecting anything back. And they found a way for you to kind of make because you made their dreams come true, they helped make your dream comes true.
Well,
And
even
I want to kind of go back to
yeah.
that whole thing with what you said about when you're feeling empty, because that's exactly how I felt when I was going through depression, and I was just like, I felt like I had nothing left to give. And so I gave and I gave, and the more I gave, the more I grew, the more I felt good about myself, right? I think and Jennifer Fryer in the comments says people feel like they will lose if you gain. There's that mentality, right? If I give, then I'm taking away from myself. And I think what you're saying and what we're all kind of saying, or I think the folks who are on this call, is that no, when you give, it's not like it's a pie and there's only a so amount of pies that you give.
Yeah.
Um, it's when you give, everything expands and it grows.
I have a
It's
phrase
not
for
like,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
What
what's
I
the
say is
phrase?
that what everything that you give piles up. So it doesn't
Mhm.
matter what you give, everything that you give. Like if you give a crappy experience to somebody, if you're mean with somebody, that piles up on you
Yeah,
eventually. If you
yeah,
give good things to other, that also piles up on you. It's like exponentially growing.
yeah,
So it doesn't matter what we give, everything that we give piles up in
yeah.
some oh,
In
there's a
in
lot we're
ancient
experiencing.
culture, we call it karma, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times, like um, who you give
Somebody's
to might not be who you get back from, right?
yeah.
But if you constantly give, there's this energy, or the universe will find a way to give back to you in a lot of ways. You get what you give. I love that. I love
And
that.
the incredible thing too is like because this is something that has changed the way I approach giving too. Some people give because they expect something, right? They're transactional. And I think Dr. Ivan last time was saying something like relation beats transaction every time, which was fascinating. And when you give expecting transaction, you're going to get to some degree, but maybe not that good. When you give just for the
Yeah.
purpose of giving, you're always going to get more than what you give, even if the other person doesn't give you back because you're actually giving it to yourself. When you give good
Hmm.
things to others, you're giving to yourself this reward of being a good person, of increasing your character, building your character. You're giving this sense of I am a generous human being and good things happen because I bring value. You give to others because you understand or reinforces the fact that you matter, that your existence matter. So the things that you get back is exponentially way more important than whatever other people can give to you. Somebody is playing um with the
Yeah. Let me
absolutely. All right, I didn't know we could do that. That's cool. I could have
okay.
used that instead of my iPad. but
Yeah, I don't
yeah, and so that's the thing, like it's always asking yourself the question, what value can I bring? And you mentioned that at the beginning you felt this emptiness, and yeah, emptiness can be filled when you start giving to others. It's just very hard to give to others when you're feeling empty. It requires a lot of internal strength from my perspective, because you need to fill your bucket first, right? So
Yeah.
if you see it as when I'm giving to somebody else, I'm actually giving something good to myself, then that can be something that can help you like go beyond that barrier of just receiving versus giving, but just actually go and do it, if that makes any sense. I like
No,
the oh sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
no, I want to kind of just read some of the comments right now. When you give to others, this is Maurice. You build your fortune too, and not necessarily material, tangible things that you can hold, but things like love, care, understanding, developing deeper connections on a more profound level, um, where we can also recognize interconnectedness that we all share. I love that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I want to kind of bring up something Jennifer kind of brings up in the comment, which is the most difficult aspect is to get paid
Hmm.
for it. So paid for helping people, right?
Yeah.
How can you make a full-time vocation helping people? And I love that comment because I know for me, I was really trying to find my purpose and my why. And so I was in marketing for years, but I realized that that wasn't my purpose. And even though I got paid very well, and it wasn't my passion. And
Mm.
so I'd always ask myself, well, what do I love doing? I love helping people. I love being of service. But how do you get paid for it? So my kind of the past 3, 4 years is, how do I get paid to help people? And that was my question. How do I do that? And you know, I haven't really fully cracked the code, but for me, it's like doing these calls, writing my book, even though I get kind of paid for writing in some ways, turned into me public speaking, me doing training for people. And I'm helping people, but I get paid to serve. And so I know for you, you as an artist one of the things you do and how we met was you give away your art, right?
Mhm.
So what motive, but you also get clients from that. So I want you to kind of go deeper into this whole notion of, this whole process of you giving away your drawings, what motivates you to share your art so freely, and how has it impacted your, finances? Like how have you been able to make a career from this, the act of
Yeah,
giving?
absolutely. I love this part. So okay, so let me start by approaching this in case of in case you don't know exactly like what I do. So I essentially take live visual notes at events. So I attend an event and I hear a speaker, and I'm drawing in real time what the speaker is saying. It's much more harder if I'm speaking, so my doodles are not representing the doodles I did today don't represent how what I do looks, but essentially that's what I do. So a year ago, I left my full-time job and I started my journey as with my own company, like my own company, me and my wife. And I needed to figure out, what to do. And the first thing that happened is, well, most of my work was the work that I've done with my previous employer. I didn't have a portfolio for myself, and I needed to show people that I do what I do so that they could hire me. It makes sense, right? They're not going to hire me on an idea. And I got a coach, and the coach told me, "Hey, what you do is so visual and so easy to see the value so fast. Why don't you just start joining webinars and like do this sketch notes out of these webinars just to build your portfolio?" And I thought, that sounds like a good idea. I could do it from podcasts and all that. And what I thought, oh, there you go. There's some of them. So what I thought at the moment is, okay, I could get hired by different kinds of clients, who are in healthcare sector or like marketing or uh, legal stuff, tax stuff, real estate, all that stuff. But I really love personal development. That's the stuff that I really, really like. And I've been listening to a bunch of people for years that have helped me along the way to grow as an artist, to grow as a creative. Like Christo is one of those. I've been listening to what was his name? I blanked right now. Donald Miller, and others. So what I did is I started joining webinars or events like LinkedIn events that they were doing, and I will do the sketch notes. And people pay thousands of dollars for these things, but I will go and I was building my portfolio, but at the same time I will share it with them. And my way of seeing it is, you guys have helped me for so long through your content that this is my way of saying thank you to you. I'm doing this cool thing. I'm not looking, necessarily for promotion or advertising or anything like that. I just want to give you back. If you want to share it, fine. If you like it, that's great. But for me, it was just coming from the field well in my heart that was filled with gratefulness. Like I was just so grateful with them. So I started doing that, for free, and with Christo, actually, because I've been following him for like, I don't know, 9 years, I think, from his YouTube videos and all that stuff. I started showing up and showing up and showing up, and eventually we had a conversation, and he was like asking me how much it was. It didn't play out in which the way that he could hire me, but I still kept showing up because I was like, I don't care if you hire me. I don't care. I just want to do it because your content is so good and I enjoy it so much, and I want to give you back all of the things that I have learned from you. as a way of appreciation. So I started showing up and doing these things. Earlier this year, I approached a nonprofit here in Atlanta, and they were doing a huge event with like multiple speakers and sharing. They help other nonprofits who are doing good in the world. And I was like, I like that stuff. And I know nonprofits sometimes have a hard time finding funds and all that. So it's like, guys, I'll do sketch notes for you. And it was like, okay, but like we don't have the funds. It's like, don't worry about it. I just want to give value to you guys and to the experience, and you can share this with other people and all that. And I went there and I did the whole event for free. And it was awesome. I loved it so much. So I feel like, okay, I kind of budget already for my personal finances a percentage that is allocated to give, so that I remember that not everything that I gain is mine, that I need to give back. But I haven't thought about that from a business perspective, how much of my business I'm willing to just give away, just feel like my business is not just for me. So I decided that I will take 2 conferences a year in which I will just offer, and they don't reach out to me. I'm just like, I want this conference, and I want to see if I can help them. So I'll just go and I offer my services. Of course, it helps, to some degree, because people see my work and they inquire, and I actually got a client from that one. But that was not my intention initially. It was like I needed to get a portfolio and I wanted to give back. So I just did it. And that's the way that I've been approaching the line of work that I do. Uh,
I love that. And I think it's like finding what your value is. Like for you, it's drawing. For me, I do speaking. And
mhm.
so I know I always allocate some time to do public speaking for schools or at-risk kids or
Yeah.
just sometimes colleges as well. And those have kind of led to other opportunities that I would not have even kind of imagined because someone was in the audience who recommended me to this person or that person, right?
Mhm.
Um, I kind of want to leave it open it to questions for the audience. If you have any questions
Oh,
in the
Maurice
Zoom
has one.
audience, let me know in the chat or in the comments. Oh,
Maurice has
did someone
one.
have a question? Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Do you want to unmute and ask your question, or do you want me to ask, Maurice?
I can ask.
Okay.
So I wanted to know, let me go back to my question if I can find it. Uh, oh, where is my, oh, so how do you arrive to a price point that you feel comfortable with, yet you don't want to undervalue yourself and still be able to help those people that may not be able to afford you?
Yeah, that's a
Oh,
good
that's a good
question. Maurice,
question.
do you mind me asking what is the thing that you do?
Right now, I am currently a full-time student. I am getting my degree in psychology,
Okay.
and it's my hope to be a grief and trauma counselor.
Oh, wow.
But I'm
Lovely.
also planning on uh, learning how to write grants and proposals to help other nonprofits, um, because I found that there is grant writers, yes, but there's such a high demand for them. So yeah,
Okay. So
just
there's
trying to create my own little niche career, however
yeah,
it's going to evolve into.
yeah. And when you I ask questions because I sometimes don't like answering questions with assumptions. I want to understand where it's coming from to make sure that my answer is tailored to that. So right now, when you are talking about the price point, like what is the resistance that you encounter? Are people telling you, oh, you should do this for free, or what is the question that they're having?
No, it's not so much of doing it for free, but I think for myself, um, that I don't undercharge. Like
Mm,
I'm learning the value that I have within myself,
mhm.
but I don't want it to be some astronomical amount because I've
Can I hop
been,
in on this? Can I hop on this question just because this is something that I've thought about for years? Um, you have to charge what you're worth. And and here's the thing, there's limited time in the day. And you also have to realize that you have bills to pay, overhead, all of these other things, maybe for your kids, private school tuition, whatever it is. But like you have to be able to ask for what you deserve, regardless of the situation. But when, it's also understanding the different buckets that you might have. You want to give, but at the same time, you might have clients that are more like Fortune 100 companies or Fortune 500 companies or charity companies that have big budgets. They would be in one bucket. But then you might have like a client that is just starting out. It's not gonna be an equal thing, but you can have like a different rate card based on what their general funds are, if that makes sense. I don't know if you have anything, Alejo, that you want to add, and I want to open it up for Jennifer's question as well.
I have a different approach and different perspective from you, but I want to ask one more thing before that. So you mentioned, you're feeling comfortable in understanding the value that you have. I'm curious about what is the value for the client or the prospect? What do they gain from working with you?
Wow, I'm stumped. It's
an important question, though.
Yes, it really is. I don't even know if I could articulate it so quickly.
But let me challenge you. If you're writing a grant and you're able to get a nonprofit 5,600,000 or whatnot, right? But you're doing it pro bono, right? So I would challenge that you actually do know what value you can bring, especially when it comes to grant writing. I think when it comes to therapy and social work and all that other stuff, that might be a different animal.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to resolve is being able to still give, but also give to myself in knowing my worth, but also to be able to help those who actually need it. So as you had mentioned, even with those companies that are the Fortune 500s, and I'm able to get them grants in the millions and hundreds of thousands, knowing that I was able to secure that grant for them actually fulfills me even more, with that feeling of knowing how many more other lives will be also equally impacted and that they can be helped. So I guess I'm just trying to, obviously that's something I have to work on this week.
Yes, and you, because you're studying, you still have time. I just want you to frame that question and have it in front of you. What is the value that this person get? And this is really important, and this is when I differ, because I don't believe that you should charge based on your self-worth. And I know that may sound controversial, but people are not paying you for you believing that you're worthy. People are paying you because they have a problem that needs to be solved. And if you can articulate that problem, like, for example, say somebody comes to you and it's like, I just chopped my finger. It's like, okay, it doesn't matter if you feel like, they're not gonna pay you for you to feel like you're worthy. They're gonna pay you because they need their finger to like be fixed, right? So if they have
solving their problem.
Exactly. So yes, you can feel like you have value, and you can feel that you're worth it because you're a person, you exist, right? You have self-worth, and that's good. You might have experience, you might have, insight and all that. But what people pay you is to solve a problem. I always tell my son, and he's 6 years old, if you want to make money, learn to solve problems. So it's not about I'm so good, it's about what can I solve. If you feel like you can solve it and you can help them see, or like guide them through the process, is this the problem that you're trying to address? Is this the thing that you're trying to solve? Is this the goal that you're trying to achieve? And they say yes, and then you feel like you can actually solve it, then the question of the price just comes back to how much that problem that they say they have, it's true or not. If they have a real problem, they're going to allocate the resources to solve it. If they cannot or don't want to allocate the resources or find the resources to solve it, it's not a problem. And you have no business trying to solve it.
That I don't know if everyone agrees with me who is listening right now, but that was a mic drop moment, which is you don't base your pricing based on your self-value, right? You base on the problem that you can solve. And I think that's a very powerful kind of statement. We probably have time for one last one for Jennifer. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Oh, thanks, Lon. Yeah, that was a very powerful a point that you just made. For me, I've had a journey leaving corporate America behind where I got paid my worth and I knew what I was going to get. And I was in sales and marketing and partnerships for years. And now I've been on my own and I do life and career coaching and money coaching. And those are all areas that are very difficult for people to pay for. They love to talk to someone all day long, but they struggle to actually figure out a way to come to terms with it both themselves, to give you money. And sometimes it's hard to ask for it. Most recently, I became a board certified health advocate because I'm living in this world dealing with challenges around my father's care. And I did it because I wanted to be really knowledgeable in it. And what I've learned from it is I feel like so many people need it. But again, it's that same space where they might struggle with it. And maybe even I struggle because I'd love to be able to, like Lon does, just share it with everyone. I'd love to be
Mhm.
up on a stage talking about it and, sharing this journey that I've had into these key areas of life.
So what I'm hearing is that you do coaching for others and people are struggling. People do are kind of having an objection about paying for it because they just want to have free advice, right?
Yeah,
Is
like
that
they'll pay for some and
uh-huh.
you get them really far or they make this progress. Others just say, I just can't imagine paying for it. Like they
Mhm.
want like to have their friend provide it or their family
Yeah.
member, but they don't have the competencies or the skill or the knowledge that I bring to the table. And I struggle with that sometimes. Just making the shift from corporate America where I had one-page data sheets and PowerPoints that were built for me and people at my disposal in these companies to help me
Mhm.
address it. It's really the same muscles I'm flexing, but
Yeah.
it comes from a place of purpose, 100%. Like I'm guided by helping them get to a better place than they are today.
And I
I
think
think it is
that's
very hard
interesting.
for
Oh, sorry,
oh
Alejo, I want to, because I
yeah.
think you have a good answer because there was a point where no one paid you to become to draw. And how did you get to that point where people started paying you to draw?
Yeah. It's hard for helpers to get paid. Because we would help anyway, right? You mentioned that you're in a place of purpose, that you just want to help. And then sometimes that can get in the way because you might feel kind of bad about charging for it because you would do it without getting paid, right? But you need to pay your bills.
Yes.
And in my case,
I need
in
to
my
have a
case,
career, make a career of this, not just make it all. What I would consider
exactly.
to be mentoring, which is what I was doing before for free for
I
many years.
think yeah, absolutely. And there's a mindset there that, you have the advantage that you went through corporate America. So, there's a corporate mentality to approach things. And then there's just like a personal mentality to approach things. It's not that they're dissociated. It's just like essentially it's different stages in life. Like life is like a big theater, but then there's scenes that change and the background drops are different, the characters are different, and you have to play with that scenario. So when you're a friend, you can give your advice for free if you want to, because you're playing in the stage of being a friend. When I am just an artist who loves doing this stuff, I just give away my stuff because I love it, because I feel the joy of doing the thing. As you feel joy at helping people, I feel joy at drawing. So I do it for free. But when I'm in my business mode, the stage has changed. I'm making money. There's people here who have a business need, um, that I can solve through my services, then I get paid for it and I ask to get paid for it. And if they cannot pay for it, they're not in a position in which they could be a client, and that is okay. Like if people cannot pay you for your services, that's nothing to do with you, right? They're not qualified as a client to work with you. And I think
Yes.
that making that boundary is super important. Now, it's not that saying, hey, you know, whatever, go and do your life and good luck. Like, no, you're like, hey, this is I can help you for this. I can give you this program that I have for coaching for this amount. I understand that your financial needs cannot do that at this point. I totally understand and respect it. And I wouldn't like for you to take a loan or get into debt to get into this, because that's not wise. But here's how I can help you. I can refer you to this person. I have this resource here. I can give you some questions so that you can meditate on them and work on them. And when you feel free, you can come back and talk. So what you give is just options for helping. When a client comes to me and is like, I don't have the budget for that, man, well, they don't say men, they're not so casual. But you know, I don't have the budget for that. I'm like, no problem. I totally understand. You know, maybe there's a change in scope that we can do, and we can do a little bit less of things so that we can accommodate to that. But I have a minimum level of engagement. If we cannot meet on that, then I can just refer you to other friends that I have. Maybe you can do it remotely instead of going on site, and then you don't have to pay for all these fees for traveling. It's like, I'm just trying to help, and we are, you know, figuring out, brainstorming things, and helping them reach to something that they feel like they get more value than what they pay. That's my goal. And if it's like we tried all the options, it doesn't work with me, I'm totally fine. I'm totally fine with them. You know, I'm totally fine with that, and I will tell them, hey, when you're ready at some point, I'll be happy to work with you. Just let me know, right? And that's fine. That's fine. You don't have to give away the thing that is making you money. You give away what you can out of your own will just for helping, but your business is just business, right? And there's a minimum level that you have to maintain before people start taking advantage of you. So
Yeah,
that would
I
be
think
my
there's that thin line, right? You want to be a giver, but at the same time, it's like make sure you're giving to the right people, because you can't give freely to everyone, because there are takers in the world who will take until you run dry. And I think that's why I always speak to givers. Like my audiences are the givers in the world, and creating boundaries is just as important. And I think we don't have time to kind of talk about this on this call because we're going to end this in a second, but as a giver, you also need to learn how to take, or not take, or to receive, right? Or to ask for your worth and create boundaries and all these other stuff, right? Because, you know, at the end of the world, at the end of the day, I think the one thing that really changed my life was I surrounded myself with givers. And that's made a huge difference, right? Because there's not this tit-tat kind of thing. And then I could just focus on just being a giver in the world, but you do need to also receive and take and ask, right?
Yeah.
So time is up. Thank you so much, Alejo. Alejo, so how can we find you? How can people learn more about you if they want to hire you to, you know, illustrate their next event or their next talk? How can we find you?
Sure thing. Well, on LinkedIn, I'm Alejo Porras, Alejo Porras. And then my name and art, so alejoporrasart.com is my website. You can find me there, or you can find me on Instagram too, Alejo Porras Art. But I like to say that if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, please send me a note so that I can know who you are and what you are intending to do, because I don't accept connections without knowing what the person is, you know, where would they meet or anything like that. And yeah, I'll be happy to learn about, you know, if there's any way that I can give you value, then I'll be happy to, or not, just like stay in touch and talk. I love to talk with people. So if you can just DM me and we can just converse, that would be fantastic. I'll be happy with that.
Awesome. And I think you guys know the deal. If you can unmute yourself right now, this is the one time I tell you to unmute yourself, turn on your videos, and give a big round of applause to Alejo. Woo! Thank you so much, Alejo. Thank you for sharing your stories and yeah, I love the story about how you came to Savannah, Georgia, and how it was the community that brought you here. And I love this community that we have here with Community of Seven and all the people, because it's really this group it's really about uplifting each other. So